Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Looks over the middle, second guesses, fires, throws. Does he make the catch in the end zone? Yes! Touchdown!
Oladipo to win it.
Another one!
He got
Another one! Another one!
Huge hole! He's at the 30! He's gonna go! 10, 5, touchdown! Jonathan Taylor!
Galloway finds Rob Finnessy, who fires the three, and
He hit it!
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard day 2 of this week. Welcome in. It is Tuesday. Kevin Brockway from CNHI Papers with me, as always. How are you, sir?
Good. A lot of exciting stuff yesterday. Trace Jackson Davis talking a little bit about his return and how he's going to clamp down, take a little more of a big leadership role this year.
Yeah. So, welcome back. You were gone last week. So, we'll talk about Trace Jackson Davis. Absolutely. As he met with the media yesterday. Kevin, we've got the Indianapolis 500 coming up. Kevin has been up to the track. Talk about that as well. All kinds of things going on. AAU returns this weekend. So lots of things happening out there. But, of course, for Indiana fans, nothing bigger than the return of Trace Jackson Davis, which was announced last Friday. And then, of course, he met with us yesterday. Anything come out of that that surprised you out of the meeting?
Well, I mean, him talking about drug use was a pretty big surprise, in past teams.
Openly.
Yes. I thought that was somewhat shocking in terms of the fact that he felt like he derailed some past seasons. Although he didn't implicate last season, it sounded like maybe his first couple of seasons.
Well, he did say he didn't rule it out last year either.
Yeah,
but
he did say
and when the words drugs are used, we're pretty much talking about one thing here. I'm pretty certain. That would be marijuana, pot, as the kids call it, the ganja. But so, which is kind of, in a way, it's from my perspective, it's kind of BS. It's no different than in 33 states it's legal. So, 33 states, we're not even having this conversation. It's no different than a 21-year-old going out and having a beer.
Yeah.
So, before everyone gets up on their high and mighty horse, just remember that. And there will come a day where it will be legal everywhere. We're not going to spend, I don't think we're going to spend our lives in a country where something like that ends up just being legal in half the states, and half the states it's not. That's just ridiculous. You can't live in a country like that. But anyway, that's what we're talking about. But yes, I agree. I was shocked by his openness. Not just that. He was open about X. He was open about basically keeping an eye on him. It was a very open conversation, and you've got to thank Indiana, because this is not a conversation we get to have if Archie Miller's here, Kevin. I truly don't believe that the players feel like now. I think they feel like they're humans. They can talk. They can do it.
Empowered.
Empowered.
Yeah.
They felt so, just whatever the case was, and now they're feeling like they're a person, because that conversation yesterday told me that more than it told me anything.
Yeah, and I think they know. I think Trace knows what's at stake here with this upcoming season, with the expectations, with the fact that, he has been part of 3 teams that maybe he feels like, based on the talent level, has underachieved somewhat. Now, this past year they finally broke through. They made the tournament, but let's not forget they were life and death. I mean, it looked really grim when they lost that Rutgers game at home on Senior Day. They were still 9th, 10th in the Big Ten Conference. They have much bigger goals this year. And, that's to finish in the top 4 in the Big Ten, to win it, and to go from there. They've got to, you look at the non-conference schedule. They've got Arizona, they've got Kansas on it already that we know of. Who knows who they're going to get in the Big Ten ACC? They'll probably get a pretty good draw there too. If they're in the Gavitt games again, they're going to get a pretty good Big East team, I would think. I would think that this team, based on the talent level it has returning, there's going to be a lot of preseason expectations. This could possibly be, with Trace coming back, a preseason top 25 team very easily. So I think a lot of it has to do with Trace wants to be out in the forefront and manage that and be a leader and make sure things don't go off the rails quickly.
Careful now. Don't say that. If you say that they're not going to be a top 10 team, man, some of the fans go nuts. That I was
still don't have shooting though. Still don't have shooting.
That's my point exactly. I'm like, well, you had Trace Jackson Davis last year. Yeah, he while it is a big boost, and this team, you don't know how good they can be. You don't know how good they can be because of what you just mentioned, and we've talked about that. But it's going to be exciting. I think that this team is not a team that's going to have to hit 10 threes a game to win. But you just have to hit the ones that you take. And are those some new headphones you're wearing?
No, they're the ones that you gave me.
Oh, okay. They looked at this. Everything's working. You sound so great. They look new and shinier for some reason. Just wanted to make sure. You've been up visiting the Indy 500 as that's taking place this week. Don't worry, we'll get back to Trace. We're going to hear from him. We're going to hear some comments, some questions. Kevin was able to talk to him as well as myself. And before I get off of him, off that subject, his leadership. Last year, I saw zero leadership from him. In yesterday's meeting, I saw a ton of leadership, at least verbally. He's playing the part.
Yeah, let's see if it carries through. I think that's, the proof will be in the pudding during the course of the year. But it sounds like he wants to lead. It sounds like he wants to hold everyone accountable. So I think that that was a positive development in that press conference, was just, his forthrightness and the fact that I think he knows that, in coming back for this year, he really wants, things to be on the straight and narrow so that Indiana can achieve all the goals that, he wants them to achieve, which, he said is a Big Ten championship, maybe even a national championship. If you get in the tournament, anything can happen. But I think that, that's probably the first goal or the first hurdle is to, go out there and win the Big Ten. And when you look at what Indiana has coming back compared to the rest of the league and the recruiting class they have coming in, you would have to say, realistically, fairly, that, they're going to be in the mix for the Big Ten title this year, that they have that kind of a team.
Absolutely. I absolutely think that they're already a top 3 Big Ten team now. Kind of just have to wait to see how the Big Ten falls out. Michigan, of course, expect to be up there. Maybe Purdue, I'm not sure. We'll find out later. But Airbnb, big time for Indy 500s this week. People renting them out, man, making money. How was your trip up to the track?
Yeah,
your first trip to the track, right? First time you've been?
Yeah, I mean, I went, I did the Grand Prix, and I only went, I think, once last week. But Scott Dixon won the pole, right? A lot of really fast times over the weekend. Did Jimmy Johnson
qualify in the top 10? Did I see that right?
Yeah, he made the top 10. Yeah.
That's I got to give it to him. I did not earlier. He's either earlier in this week or whatever. I'm like, he just hasn't impressed me with the crossover. But man, he had the fastest lap in practice one day, and now to qualify in the top 10, I'm impressed. Color me impressed, Jimmy Johnson. Not that he needs my endorsement, but man, I think that's impressive.
Yeah, and I did a story last week on some of the younger drivers, and Alex Palou, who was a runner-up last year, is in the Super 6 as well. So you've got some, potential for some new blood in there as well in terms of, guys that you could be hearing from on Sunday.
Absolutely, looking forward to that, and then. Of course, the draft's still coming up, although a lot of people's kind of forgotten about it for Indiana fans since Trace Jackson Davis is no longer in it. but that's still heading this way. So we'll be looking to see how that goes. You've got the Pacers, who have a single-digit draft pick. So all kinds of excitement yet to happen.
Will Jaden Ivey be there with the 6th pick? I think that's a big question. Or maybe Keegan Murray from Iowa. That's another guy too. That do you take a Big Ten guy with that pick?
See, I'm just not. Do the Pacers need a Jaden Ivey? Do they need a is that what they need?
I mean, athletic guard. A lot of it was interesting because somebody asked me, a friend of mine who's a Pistons fan, asked me a comp for Keegan Murray and Jaden Ivey, and I think Jaden Ivey is more athletic, has a higher upside, but Murray is probably the safer pick in terms of his size, right? He's 6'7", and his ability to shoot. That will definitely play well, but you're talking about two guys that are both going to be lottery picks, probably, that are projected as lottery picks from the league.
Jimmy Johnson starting 12th per Ross.
Okay.
So
yeah, because I know he made the final 12. I didn't realize he ended up 12th. Yeah, for some reason I thought he was top 10.
Going back, Mike says, let's see leadership on the floor. Talk is cheap. Actions speak louder than words. Love me some cliches this morning. Yeah,
All right.
I agree. It is easy to talk the talk. Walking the walk's a different deal, but he sounded, going back to Trayce Jackson-Davis, he sounded pretty intent.
I agree. I mean, I think he sounded like he really wants to, take control of this team and have this team follow his lead and follow his example. And listen, from what we know from Trayce in 3 years, the guy is, off the court, I think, definitely an exemplary, he's a good student. He's always been pretty good with us for the most part. Every once in a while on social media, he'll get honest about things and stuff. But I think that, he's got good intentions. Let's put it that way. And I think he's a guy that off the court probably, lives his life the right way. And I think he wants the rest of the team to follow suit that way.
Absolutely. And he wants to have a good season with no derailments like what happened last year at Northwestern, which there's no question that was a derailment that affected their season.
Almost cost them the tournament. If they don't make that run in the Big Ten tournament, you look at that, and that was, continued the losing streak in February that stretched in early March with Rutgers. And, you look at that and you say to yourself, that could have really, crushed the entire season. And, listen, to Trayce's credit, they regrouped in the end, and Trayce was a big reason for that. I mean, he really, for as good as he was throughout the season, I really thought he took it up another level in the Big Ten tournament and really willed that team to make that run that ended up, cementing their first NCAA tournament bid since 2016.
And great play by Xavier Johnson, nonetheless, as well, whose play at the end of the season turned things around, ironically. But speaking of X, he has NBA aspirations too. So you would think that he wouldn't need too much guidance on staying on the right path this year, because this is his shot, because he can't go awry. GMs are watching this stuff. They've seen the other shenanigans, which is okay. You can get away with that college stuff, but it's got to end now. And he's got to show, to me, if he has aspirations to play in the NBA, he has to show that he is a serious person and that he's grown up, that he's past all the shenanigans, and he's serious about his game, because he has an opportunity to be a floor leader on a pretty good team.
Yeah. But they're still 18 to 23-year-olds. They're still, I think, going to make mistakes. Some are going to make more mistakes than others. But I think it's about choices, and I think it's about having the right guys in your ear. And I think if Trayce is in his ear, then I think that's going to speak volumes. You got to have Trayce and race, and I guess babysit is a strong word, but keep their eye on him.
Well, what were the words? He's going to be hanging out with us. That's pretty much exactly what Trayce Jackson-Davis said in regards to Xavier Johnson. And I mean, that's got to be hard for Xavier Johnson. I don't want somebody talking about me like that, like I need babysat. You know, being a senior, I'm like, hey, man, chill. It's not I mean, it's not like he's done the first dumb thing in the history of college. So there's that.
I think too, Xavier's put himself in that position where he's.
I don't disagree with that. Absolutely.
He's probably on a zero strikes policy now. Like the next one will, probably get him off the team, I would think.
I would agree with that. Hey, we got to take a quick break. You're listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by our good friends, of course, at Southern Stone Restaurant, located at the corner of Patterson and Rogers in Bloomington. Stop by and have some great comfort food with a Southern flair. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Kevin Brockway with us right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Whether you're visiting Bloomington, Mike's ready. I didn't see him in the green room.
He is.
Looking all comfortable with his Steelers wear on, baby.
The Steelers. Here we go,
Mike,
Steelers. Here we go.
I think your mic might be off like it usually is when you first come in.
Mine
I don't get it, man. I really don't get it.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
he
off.
doesn't. Yeah.
That's so weird. He's the only one it happens to every time.
Well, it's been happening to me. I don't get this.
Did you
weird.
Did you watch Better Call Saul last night?
Well, of course.
What an ending, huh?
Let's.
How about now?
There we go.
Yeah. Ain't that the dumbest thing in the world? I had to do the same thing. Kevin, we'll talk about that later.
Yours is by design, Jim.
Yes, and very smartly so.
Hey, quickly, Jim, I don't know if you heard me earlier, but I've got Joe with me this morning shadowing in on me. I don't know if he can hear you, and I've got my phone on, so he could say something to you if he wanted to or say hello. But just want to let you know he's with me and that I'm showing him stuff this morning.
Hey, Joe. How are you, brother? I've seen a lot of soccer on TV here of late, Mike.
Good.
Which is something I'll bring up, but I'm like, especially Fox, I guess. Is it Fox?
Yeah, they had a game on Saturday night that got basically rained out. Not rained out, but rain delayed.
It's funny watching, like I was watching the NASCAR All-Star race, but to hear you're watching NASCAR and they're talking about Premier League and I'm just laughing and I'm like going, I'm sitting there like I felt kind of like a hillbilly. I'm watching NASCAR and they're talking about soccer. Two sports that could not be any further away on the spectrum, on the sports spectrum, I think. And I've learned to like both of them, both.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can turn on a soccer match, a decent soccer match, and enjoy it. You have to understand it or you cannot. If you do not know if you don't know the rules, you don't have to know everything, but if you don't know the basic rules, you cannot enjoy soccer because it looks stupid.
Well, I had to cover a high school soccer game in the early 80s. And I had no idea what the rules were. I mean, it was as if I showed up to review a movie that was in Swedish. I mean, I had no idea what was happening.
That's a great
30 seconds.
Radio. We're now a part of the Rivals Network. TheHoosier.com is where you can find complete coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and plenty more. Simply go to TheHoosier.com and sign up. It's free. You can also find full episodes of Indiana Sports Beat Radio on the homepage or on the station every week, Monday through Friday. If we're not on a station where you live, we should be. Ask for Indiana Sports Beat Radio. This segment is brought to you by Feast Market and Cellar. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back. It is Tuesday, and that means Kevin Brockway from CNHI joins us, and we're always joined by our great friend from the Sporting News, Mike DeCourcy. Mike, I was just talking in the break. I've seen a lot of over the weekend. Lots of stuff going on. NASCAR All-Star race was on. Indy 500 qualifying. I saw a lot of ads for soccer, major, big-time soccer on primetime sports, which is something you absolutely didn't used to see. But now when you hear these names, Liverpool and Real Madrid and Manchester U, they've become well known to even the people who don't watch. And I understand. I used to be a TV sports anchor, and it's kind of you was telling a story similar in the break. I remember having to cover hockey for the first time. I didn't know a damn thing about hockey. All I knew was he shoots, he scores. I kept the clips cut short, nice and short. Someone passes, he shoots, he scores. That's all I knew. I knew there was a blue line. I didn't know what the hell the blue line was for. I knew people were offsides. I'm like, I didn't see anybody jump. It was just, but it's very similar to soccer in the rules as far as being offsides and this and that. But my daughter started playing soccer when she was in the fourth grade. Heck, she's a freshman in college now. But until I learned the rules, I thought soccer was almost on borderline stupid of a sport. And now after I took her to I guess probably a AAA league game, the Indianapolis 11, whatever league that they're in.
Right.
With Louisville. The speed, the ferocity, the nonstop athletic movement. I was blown away being there, being up front, being close enough where you could see how hard these guys were running. I'm like, holy crap. It was mind-boggling to me how hard these guys go when they go. So when you see them taking a second off, trust me, if your ass was out there, you'd understand why, because I'd be having an oxygen cart being pulled out there.
Well,
it's not learning rules, but people don't know the rules. It's hard for them, and I get it, to like a sport that's still kind of not foreign, but it's still looking to grab its foothold.
Somewhat. Yeah, well, Jim, I think one of the things I grew up in the 70s, and soccer, the people who are aficionados in the New York Cosmos like to act as if soccer was pervasive in that period. And I was as sports obsessed as any young person could possibly be. And soccer was not even remotely on the radar. The World Cup was not on television here in those years. There was the North American Soccer League, but it was very much restricted to a particular city or two, like New York with the Cosmos. But there were empty seats in most of the cities, and it was very rarely on television. I remember once seeing the championship game being placed on TV, but it just didn't exist, and it only existed to the point where those of us who grew up with football, baseball, basketball, hockey could dismiss it as foolish or a waste of time or whatever, boring, because there wasn't a lot of scoring. But it was mostly because we didn't know and we hadn't been exposed to it. And then when I was in 1990, I was early in my career as a sports writer. The World Cup did come on to television. Turner Sports put it on. And I said to myself, hey, let's find out what this is like. I mean, why is the whole world obsessed with this? And I'm not, and I have no knowledge of it. And so I told myself I was going to watch, a good bit of that. And I sat down, and after maybe a game, maybe two, I was absolutely hooked. I just got totally roped in. I found it to be fascinating. And I tried to learn the rules as I watched the game. And for me, I compare it now, 3 decades later, I compare it to like being 6 again or 7 or whatever, and learning about baseball or football. And so, for those who haven't been converted yet and have reached their 20s or 30s or 40s. I think it's really a cool thing because it gives you that opportunity to kind of be a kid again. And if you are converted, then, I think it's great. And one thing I will say that in that process of becoming a soccer fan, you do encounter there are some soccer fans who are a bit unwelcoming. I did encounter that over that period of time, and so you do have you do have to remember there are people out there now. I mean, I think having been to 4 World Cups now, I think I can say that I'm on the other side of that line, that I'm a soccer follower, and there are people like us who want more people in the tent, and that the group that is elitist about it, I think, has grown to a very small minority.
The NBA playoffs going on as well. Victor Oladipo, great night, 13 out of the first 18 points, kind of a bounce back year for Victor Oladipo.
Yeah, 13 out of the first 18 points, but didn't it take like a half for them to get 18 last night?
Yeah, well, hey man, I'm just trying to make it positive as possible.
Yes, you were. Yeah, I mean, we're back to square in that series, which is good because the games themselves haven't been great for the most part in this round of the playoffs. The Golden State Dallas series is not close. And then you have these games, which it's even in games, but the games have been mostly blowouts. It's the Heat winning by blowout or the Celtics winning by blowout.
Well, game 3 I watched last night, and Oladipo had a really nice impact defensively in that game. He had about 4 or 5 steals in the second half, and the Celtics made a charge, and that was a little exciting at the end, but the Heat pulled it out. That was the one game I thought in that series that really kind of stood out in terms of having a little bit of drama. But Oladipo really, because Jimmy Butler went down at halftime, and Oladipo had to play pretty much the entire second half and made some big plays.
And well, obviously, from his time here in Indianapolis, we know when Victor is healthy, he's a top NBA player. I mean, he may not be LeBron or someone like that, but he's in the top echelon of the league at full health, and so he was obviously a great pickup for the Heat to try to take a run at this title. And I think he'll have a lot to say about whether they get there, and if they do to the finals, whether or not they can win it.
Yeah, I think I saw Juwan Morgan on the floor for the Celtics as well last night, if I'm correct. Was that him, number 4?
I didn't realize that he had got, I didn't watch the very end because it got so bad, but I didn't realize that's where he was now. I got a chance to see him play with the Heat, with the Jazz early in his career here in Indy. But yeah, that was him. So, he's got a shot at a ring. Good for Juwan. Great kid. He was a great player for IU and, in some tough circumstances. So happy for him that he's part of an organization that has a shot at a championship.
Yeah, so one of them is going to the NBA Finals at least, either Victor or Oladipo.
Yeah, there'll be IU representation. And maybe,
and then who's on the other side? Who's still left?
That's Golden State and Dallas, and it's going to be Golden
State. Over. That's over. Yeah, I was trying to think. Will Sheehy is in the coaching. He's not on Golden State's particular coaching staff, but I think he's on the G League, Golden State's G League coaching staff. I was chatting with him like a week ago, and last time I chatted with him, he was in New York working in private business, I believe. And then boom, he's like, yeah, I'm on the staff. I'm like, what? So even when you think these guys are out, it's like they drag me back in.
Hey, Brad Stevens, perfect example of that, right? He was working here in Indy at Eli Lilly and just couldn't shake it. And now he's the president of the Boston Celtics. So totally get that. And it's, I guess to an extent, it's that way with Trayce Jackson Davis. You thought he was out, but they pulled him back into the Hoosier land as well, right?
Exactly.
Big news for the Hoosiers.
Yep. We're going to talk about that. Let's see. What time is it? 9:03. Well, we got ways. We'll go ahead and we've got some clips we'll hear from him as well from yesterday, but we'll go ahead and pick it up. But I don't know. Did you get a chance to see any of his interview yesterday, Mike?
I've read clips, but I did not see it. I did not. I wasn't aware that he was being presented for a Zoom.
At least in talking with Kevin, my instant take was, well, he sure seems to be grown up a year older. He seems to have leadership quality. He's talking the talk without question, way more so than I've ever heard him, more definitive than I've heard him. And that is only good for Indiana fans because they didn't have anybody that was doing that. They were kind of like a rudderless team out there on the floor. And he went with Kevin to say is what some of the stuff he said, he was really open and taking a leadership role over Xavier Johnson, which is amazing. But yeah, it was kind of a little more informative than I expected.
Yeah, I think he also did an interview last week in which he was very open as well. And I think that's great. I think he understands, like, if he's going to spend another year at IU, it can't be a wasted year. And so there are two elements to that. One is that IU has to be more successful than it's been. And okay, they made it to the tournament and they had a nice Big Ten tournament run, and that's good. But it's not what they want. It's not what they believe Indiana should be. It's not why they came to be Hoosiers. Getting in and winning a game and then getting smoked by St. Mary's isn't what that's not what they want. Squeezing into the back of the field in the NCAA tournament through the first four, it's not what they want. So that's the one aspect of it. And then the second aspect of it is his game development, which is partly skill wise and usage wise. What does he do on the floor? That's a big part of it. How is he deployed? Does he play away from the goal more? Does he play in space more, which he's going to need to do at the NBA level? You can't waste that 12 months if he's going to play another year. And I think Mike understands that. I suspect he does. And I know Trace does, because that's why he's going back, to get better, to be a better prospect, because he still has the potential to be a first rounder if he shows that he's comfortable and proficient away from the basket. He's a really good basketball player. And if you add that to his game or display that, I think that makes a huge step. But then the second component of that is leadership. And that applies to both sides. You're not going to win big if you don't have leadership. And he needs to be that. And now like I said, he has the urgency of spending this extra year at IU. So the urgency says, look, I'm not letting everybody go wherever, do this, do that. No, I mean, I'm here to win games and I'm here to get better. So everybody else is going to have to follow my lead, or this isn't going to pay off for me or any of the rest of us. So you're all going to listen. And, whether it's to me or to coach, you're going to listen. And I think that's a great, it's a great step forward for him as a basketball player to have come to that realization that it's okay for him to, throw his weight around a little bit. The best teams have that.
You were up at the draft combine last week. What did you see? What, who was maybe elevated? What did you see that he made the right decision to come back for Trace? But then there's others. I'm sure the other people may have elevated their game, elevated their status that maybe wasn't expected there as well. How was it?
Well, I think it was a good experience for me as a journalist to have not been in a environment like that for multiple years because of the pandemic. There was no combine in 2000. There was no Peach Jam in 2000. It was more limited a year ago. And so it was good to be back and to see people in that environment, casual, relaxed. I mean, obviously the NBA people are doing their jobs, but in between sessions, they're, a lot of, gabbing, gossiping. People like to find things out. The way you find things out is to have conversations. What do you think of this guy? What do you think of that guy? So it was great to be back in that environment. I didn't think anybody just absolutely leaped off the page. There were some players like Kenneth Lofton, Jr. From Louisiana Tech, really big guy, needs to get his body right. But Kevin Brockway knows as well as anybody that when I talked to Kenneth, I told him, do you know who Adonis Haslam is? And he said, no, I've never heard that name. And I said, well, you need to look him up, because Adonis was a low post based, anchored to the block guy when he played at Florida. And then he took about a year, completely redid his body, and he's played in the NBA for 20 years. I mean, exactly. And honestly, Kenneth probably has more raw skill, raw basketball skill at this point than Adonis had when he was at a similar age. They're both terrific college players, but I think Kenneth might have a little bit more, but his body's got a long way to go. He announced last night on Twitter that he's all into the draft. Well, I mean, that's fine. I think that some teams saw what they saw and thought, hey, we can get our own Haslam here, because he's a gifted player, but his body needs a lot of work. Keon Brooks, on the other hand, last night announced that he will be back in college. Now, he is able to go back to Kentucky if he wishes, and give them that, that stretch four component that he would like to develop into. He needs to get his shot better if that's going to happen. But he's also in the transfer portal. He told me that he wants to have all his options open, that his agent told him that would be the best thing to have all your options available. And so he announced, or it was reported last night, that he will be back in NCAA basketball next year. So I think we'll see more and more of those guys coming back to college with name, image, likeness, etc. We hear constantly all these coaches complaining about name, image, and likeness because it makes their job harder, because players are moving more and all that. But what you need to hear from people like me and you, Jim and Kevin, is this is fabulous for college basketball. We see more and more players return to play as juniors, seniors, super seniors, etc. Instead of just saying, well, I've put in my time, I'm not making any money, I can go to Philippines and make 70,000 or whatever. If I'm really good, I can go to Spain maybe and make a couple 100,000, etc. Now they can do that where they are and continue to develop. And hey, Spain's still going to be Spain in 2 years. So I think that what is not spoken about enough is what name, image, and likeness is doing to deepen the talent pool in the college level.
I agree. And I think that I saw yesterday where Purdue is listed. We're going to do it the right way. Was essence in code. We're way, way behind and we're trying to catch up. But they are not kind of where a lot of other people are, but it is someplace where you better get to. But we got to take a break. Plenty more to talk to. Trace Jackson Davis returning. Mike is here, Mike DeCourcy, with us from the Sporting News, as well as Kevin Brockway from CNHI Papers. Back with more, brought to you by Feast Market and Cellar, where you can get great wine and great cheese right here in Bloomington. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
The sun is out, the birds. Holy moly. How's your golf game, Mike?
I don't play much golf these days.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
Yeah. Although the wife and I, maybe because the Memorial Day weekend has people out of town, we were able to get reservations for Top Golf on Sunday. So we're gonna do that. We enjoy that.
Oh. Everyone will be at the track, right? For Indy.
Everybody will be at the track on Sunday.
That's
yes,
right.
Yes, you got 500,000 people there. Maybe that's why we were able to get a reservation. It is hard to get a reservation on a weekend at Top Golf, but we pulled it off maybe because of that.
How easy was it on that particular Sunday?
Easy. Like usually, like in order to do it, you have to like stay up till midnight when they switch it over. But because that morning I was I asked for 10:30 and I had like the whole range of times from like 9 to noon or whatever. So it was good. But we'll look forward to that. We always have a good time when we do that.
It's amazing. I mean, they're just printing money.
True.
And I was waiting. I'm like going, why? Go ahead.
Just for reference, I know we won't do this till after Mike's probably gone, but the clips I have of Trace Jackson Davis, I have your question and I have Kevin's question. I couldn't find Alex's question. I may have just overlooked it, but is it something you really want? Alex's question?
No.
Okay.
I forget my first one.
I can go back and listen to the answer and let you know.
Trying to remember. That's okay. I can go back and look at my notes.
And Kevin, I don't know how many you asked, but I have your first one as well.
I only have one, yeah.
Okay.
I couldn't believe JD, man. He let us. We got 2 rounds of questions yesterday.
Yeah.
This is crazy. We all even got to ask a question. It's a new world. It's a whole new world. Seriously, when Archie was here, our midweek press conferences, maybe 4 questions.
Yeah.
And that was it.
All right, here we go.
Deal sales event. Get 0.99% APR financing for well-qualified buyers on all 2017 through 2021 Honda certified pre-owned Accords, Civics, CRVs, HRVs, and Pilots. See dealer for financing deals. Andy Moore Honda, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer. Get more to your door with AndyMooreHonda.com.
Come see us at the all-new Andy Moore Honda, now in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by Courtroom Sports Grill in Bedford. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming to you on this Tuesday. I hope your week is going well. We're trying to make it better. If not, Kevin Brockway from CNHI Papers joins me as always, as is Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News, Fox, and BTN. Welcome back in, everybody. Something else I was thinking of, Mike, with the return, and Kevin, the return of Trace Jackson Davis. Of course, Indiana fans are already painting Indiana as a Final Four team and all that stuff, of course. I've seen that a lot already. But I do think, and not that they're going to be competing for a Big Ten title. I don't know how they could not compete for a Big Ten title. It does not mean I think they're going to win it or they're the favorite to win it. But along with Michigan, I don't know who else is going to. We got to get a lot closer to see who's what. But this should, at the minimum, give Indiana a chance to compete for a Big Ten championship.
It should. I can tell you why it wouldn't, but I mean, because there are things that have to be covered. And you just covered it right there. I mean, they have to show they can shoot the basketball. That's the biggest one. They need consistency. They need personal consistency out of Xavier Johnson. He's got to show up every day. He's got to show up to work every day. When the ball's in your hands, as much as we can talk about Trace as a leader, and that will be an essential element of this team, when your best player has to be at least a leader, if not the leader. That's important. But the guy who has the ball in his hands also must be a leader, even if it's just during from buzzer to tip off the buzzer, has to be a leader. And it's hard to be a leader when you're as inconsistent as he's been from a personal standpoint. So that's going to be part of that, of who they are. And then, as you mentioned, they've got to show they can shoot the basketball, whether that's the freshman coming in, whether that's Miller Kopp being more consistent. I believe he's planning to play this year.
Jamar Bates is someone that
Bates, yeah, and you got to get that guy run. I mean, I don't think his personal, from a standpoint of, I don't think that he's been inconsistent. I think his time has been inconsistent, and so he's got to be out there. I mean, unless he shows that he, that what he put on tape last year was a fluke, and I don't think that's the case. I mean, he's got to be out there, Jim. And I know that Indiana brought in a lot of talent, and they're going to have to find room for Hood Schifino and all the other young players they brought in. But if Tamar Bates shoots the basketball like he did last year, he's got to be out there.
Yeah,
Well, but
Kevin,
he went through some stuff though. He did, if you remember, I mean, he was gangbusters in the non-conference and then went through some personal things and he hit a slump, Mike. And I think, you could say that somebody needs some run, but when they're out there and not producing and shooting 1 for 4, 1 for 5, and they seem like they're in the fog. And, he did have, he had that one game at Michigan State, I thought, where he played pretty well, but it took him a little while to adjust to the Big Ten. And some of that was not physical. Some of that was some things that, he went through some family things and he became a dad and so forth and everything. And
Trace alluded to that yesterday as well. Trace was very shockingly open about a lot of things, Mike. William, you've got the transcript, but yeah, I mean, he was just really, really open. And it was, well, first of all, it was refreshing. But it was, that to me showed part of his leadership, that his growth, because they were acknowledging, not putting it, not acting like nothing happened, not covering it under the rug and doing all that stuff, addressing, taking it on and then meeting and getting past it. Because if you don't, that stuff just sits there and lingers. They want to get, you can kind of tell. It's like, I want all this junk passed. And that's kind of how I saw that yesterday.
Yeah, it's what I was talking about before. I mean, wanting this year to be a productive year, not a wasted year. And look, anytime you're on a college campus, it's not wasted. I'm talking purely in a basketball sense. But from this, he's got things that he can develop as personally as a basketball player, skill wise, that sort of thing. And then he's got, you've got the pursuit of the team success that hasn't been available to the program or hasn't been achieved by the program since 2016, the last time they won the Big Ten, and made the Sweet 16. But that, it's one thing to make the Sweet 16. It's another to make the Sweet 16 and not be competitive at that stage. So I think that they have grander dreams than what happened in 2016. I think they'd like to be closer to what happened in 2013, where they made, that team won the league in one of the best years the league has ever had. They made the Sweet 16 work. And I know they didn't play well in that game, but they were expected to do some things that year, as opposed to the 2016 team, which kind of hit its ceiling. I think this team would like to even go beyond that, not tap out at the Sweet 16 level, and to be able to be a team that goes into March as a feared team. I think that's something that they believe is possible. And I believe it's possible too, if they, want, as we mentioned, find consistent shooting and, get the consistent point guard play out of Xavier Johnson, or some combination of him and Jalen Hood-Schifino. And then, again, make Trace a more unpredictable weapon, not one who's always rooted on the right block. And I still think there's great value in having him down there in certain circumstances. Hey, we need a bucket or a foul. Get Trace down there. Terrific. But he also needs to be able to be mobile on offense. Again, it doesn't have to be to the 3-point line, although that would be a plus. But he's got to be more mobile. And with someone like Race, who has developed into a really consistent low post performer, his growth last year as a player was among the best in the Big Ten. He's got great hands. He's really hard to move. He finishes strong. You don't necessarily need Trace down there except in the most extreme circumstances, because Race is nearly, he doesn't have as many moves as Trace does, and he's not as electric. But if you give him space, he's going to be one-on-one, and one-on-one, there are very few players who can stop him.
Or not foul him.
Right.
And then he can also step out and he can shoot the ball. Not that he was great at it. His percentages wasn't high, but it was enough that you had to respect it. You couldn't leave him alone. One of the things we talked about yesterday with Trace was legacy. And, he has the opportunity now coming back to leave Indiana as its top number one in blocks, number one in rebounds, number probably 3 all-time scorer. Some really, really, really high numbers. But without a Big Ten title, without something tangible to lock on to that. Those are just numbers, and I don't know how strong that legacy is without a trophy to go with it.
I think that it obviously would help to have something like that, a Big Ten championship, a Big Ten tournament, a Sweet 16 or a Final Four, or I think that would be great. But if he's able to move the program forward, remember where it was when he came in, and then, where it is now. If he left, well, it got better. But if he got them into the title race, if he got, and remember the Big Ten title now with so many more competitors, it's not easy to pin down. But if they were in the race strongly and got into the tournament with a prominent seed, and then Indiana could use that to build on, I think that you would, even if you had a trophyless program. I mean, you look at Tennessee 2019 or Pitt 2009, teams that were terrific but uncrowned. I always think of that as, they still have great legacies as teams, and the players involved in the DeJuan Blair at Pitt or Grant Williams at Tennessee, they still have terrific legacies, even though their final teams were trophyless. So I wouldn't hang it on that. I wouldn't say if they don't get a trophy this year that it will have been an empty season. I think it's more, the first priority is to make Indiana significantly better, to put them at the front of the NCAA tournament field instead of barely hanging on to the back end.
Purdue last year, right? That's another example.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Was a team that didn't come home with a trophy, but people remember Jaden Ivey, and
Speaking of him, you saw him at the did you see him much at the combine? I don't know how much he participated.
It's very disappointing because I had hoped to speak to him, and he and I presume it was his agent decided that even though he was on the schedule to be interviewed on Thursday, that he did not participate. I was not pleased by that. The league is about to make you a multi-millionaire. You can take 10 minutes and talk to the reporters. Nothing bad is going to come out of that. And certainly if you're not going to do it, at the very least, you could have the courtesy to make it clear well in advance that you're not going to do it. And again, I don't necessarily blame Jaden for that. I suspect it was his agent. But the agents have got to grow up on this. I mean, it's a very small request. I mean, literally, it's a 15-minute window that they ask you for while you're there. And
I was going to say, has he talked since the St. Peter's game? I'd be curious, because that was
not that I'm aware of. He may have done some one-on-one with somebody that hasn't been published yet, but I haven't seen him quoted anywhere. And I was disappointed by that. He was not the only one, but he was the one I wanted to speak with. But Chet Holmgren didn't show either. There were a couple at that level of the draft. Shaden Sharp also didn't show, and they were all on the schedule to speak. Again, it's they're going to make you a multi-millionaire within 6 weeks, and they asked you for 15 minutes. I didn't think that was a lot to give in return.
Where do you think Ivy goes? Who do you think the Pacers end up with?
Well, I'm hopeful. I think Ivy is an intriguing prospect because he could upset the whole draft order. I mean, there has been a long-term presumption that the first three players off the board will be in some order: Chet Holmgren, Jabari Smith, and Paolo Banchero. But when you look at what when you look at what has happened with John Morant in Memphis, who has just completely blown up in just a couple of years, it's hard to look at John and say, well, yeah, there's lots of guys like him, or, we can just pass on him and take this guy because he's big. I mean, John Morant and Russell Westbrook and players like that, that have that athletic profile, there are very few players that are in that group. And I can't remember any that didn't make a significant contribution at the NBA level that didn't become really significant players. I suppose you could say Andrew Wiggins, although he's not the same, but he's in that class of dynamism, and he didn't become a great NBA player. But he's even as a not great NBA player, he still was averaging 20 a game, which shows what that level of dynamism can do for you. So personally, I would have Ja ahead of most of those guys. I really like Banchero. I think if Banchero becomes a great shooter, he brings a bigger package than just about everybody. I know Jabari Smith is really loved as a prospect. He's a great shooter, and he has not only a great shooter, but he's really able to get his shot off effectively. I don't like that he's not been dominant. That scares me a little bit. Chet Holmgren scares me a lot, but I also know that from his skill package, he's 7'1" and can do everything. He just doesn't do it all the time. I worry that most of the people who talk about him talk about his lack of physicality and all that. I don't worry about that as much. I worry more about him finding ways to impact possessions every time down the floor.
When I saw him play out in Portland, that was my first thought. As I kept looking at him, looking way too thin, I'm like, oh, he's too thin. It never impacted. It didn't bother him. He was able to body with those guys, which I was pretty surprised. So he must be stronger than he looks and just needs more meat on him, but he must be stronger than he looks. But he's just one that stands out. He's such a 7-foot dude that can run the floor and shoot from the three. I mean, what game are we playing here, folks? What the hell's happening to basketball?
But what bothers me about him is that he only played great against the least opposition he played. If you look at the breakdown of him against the best Ken Pom teams, I heard Matt Norlander breaking this down on his podcast yesterday with Gary Parrish. If you look at, there's a stretch last year, end of January-ish to end of February-ish. There's about a month when he literally shoots better than 50% from three-point range. But it's all of the West Coast Conference middle and bottom teams. I think there might be one San Francisco game in there, something like that. And that it just bothers me a little bit that in order to become great, he had to play against the least. And then when the games started to get tough, St. Mary's, some of the games in the West Coast Conference tournament, the three they played in the NCAAs, then he's not really a huge factor again. So that worries me. I would not want to be the Magic having to make that decision. As for the Pacers, if I'm the Pacers, I'm sitting there hoping that Shaedon Sharpe goes ahead of me and that I can get Keegan Murray, because I don't know. Is Shaedon Sharpe good? I don't know. I've never seen him play. Didn't play at the camp. Didn't play college. How do I know? You're going to watch him play in workouts and decide that you want to spend the number 5 pick on him when you've got a guy in Keegan Murray who's going to go out and average minimum 18 and 9 by year 2. I'm going for him if I can get him.
What's next up for you, Mike, with the sporting news?
Yeah, I'm working on a piece. Speaking of soccer, Saturday afternoon is the final of the UEFA Champions League with Liverpool in it. In the final for the third time in 5 years against Real Madrid, which is also back. They've been, I think they're something like 5 out of the last 8 or something like that in terms of their finals appearances. So it's a huge, a huge game. And I'm working on a piece about Liverpool. And so that'll publish on Thursday. So looking forward to getting that done.
I love just to sing Liverpool and Real Madrid. It sounds so regal. The great Mike DeCourcy joining us here from the Sporting News, BTN, and Fox. Look forward to it each Tuesday, Mike. I hope you have a great rest of your week, man.
You too, guys. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Mike DeCourcy joining us here along with Kevin Brockway from CNHI. We're both coming back right after this. After you brought to you by Courtroom Sports Grill down in Bedford. Great place to stop by and catch a game and a great meal. And also don't forget about coming up, Jordan Hall's Never Lose Hoop golf outing, in which you can participate in. It is June 23rd. That is a Thursday. It's $125 a man. Put a team together. You can sponsor be a hole sponsor for just $100, or there's some other ways that you can help. Donate, but 100% of the proceeds go to Never Lose Hoop, helping area kids with cancer here. So looking forward to that coming up on June 23rd. Hopefully you can play. There's going to be a heavy IU presence, not just basketball, but IU basketball and others as well. So you can take that hint for all you want. Hey, we got more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Kevin Brockway and myself, we're back with it right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Andy Moore Honda.
All right, Jim, I've got your clips ready for this segment if you want to use them. Your question and Kevin's question. They're both under a minute long.
What did I'm trying to remember what I asked my first question. Let's see. My notes. Damn it. Oh, I wrote it on somewhere else.
Also, you're 100% not going to be available for tomorrow, right?
Well, I woke up in a freaking panic last night because I realized tomorrow night is Huber's.
Yeah.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh my God, if I have to change that flight, it's going to cost me money.
Well, if you're not, obviously you have a dilemma to deal with, but if you end up not doing it, and since I'm not going to have Dustin, I was going to use tomorrow morning to do a mock show with Joe to get him involved with doing stuff instead of actually doing a show. Because I think that would be more beneficial to him if we have that time.
How you going to do a mock show without people?
We record it, and I have him run through it as if it was a live show. We won't do 20-minute segments or whatever, but I'll sit there and I'll be like, okay, this segment's done. What happens next? And I'll walk him through those kinds of things. He's watching me do it today, but he'll be able to actually do it sort of from himself tomorrow if we don't have. And I'm not encouraging you to not do a show if you end up being available. If you're available, we obviously do a show.
Right. Oh God, just I can't believe it. God. It's got too much going on. I got to start putting everything on the damn calendar. Everything.
So I'm getting that way too. I've been losing track of stuff.
Everything's got to go on the calendar from now on.
Are you going to go to Huber's tomorrow or no?
Well, I'm planning on it, but I was supposed to travel tomorrow. I wasn't thinking when I made the arrangements.
Do you still need a ride or no?
Brother, you're not paying attention. Let us get through the show. I just realized that I have an issue, so I've got to take care of the issue. Yeah. God.
We'll figure it out. We're coming back, by the way.
You want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl Sizemore from Remax Advanced Realty at Cheryl@IndyHomePros.com or 317-298-0961. Cheryl Sizemore from Remax Advanced Realty. Let Cheryl Sizemore get you in the home you want today. Cheryl@IndyHomePros.com.
This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indy Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here. That reminded me of Ocean's 11.
Yeah.
that's what it was. When I was like, oh, what's that remind me of? And all of a sudden, when they're all going through their little deals that they're doing, oh man, what's the last movie you have seen in a theater?
I don't know. You know what I want to see though, or did it come out today or tomorrow? But apparently, Nolan Ryan is doing a documentary, and it's going to be out in theaters, which is kind of strange.
I did not know that.
But we both remember Nolan back in the day, man. He wasn't afraid to knock people down, and remember him beating up Robin Ventura on the mound. He's like in his 40s.
That's the greatest. The greatest. That is the absolute greatest mound charge in the history of baseball.
Yeah.
He picked the wrong guy to charge, man. If you're what we're talking about is Nolan Ryan threw. I can't remember if he hit him or not, but Robin Ventura charges the mound against Nolan Ryan. Ryan just throws his glove down, waits for him. As soon as he gets there, grabs him in a headlock and just starts pounding on him.
Yeah.
That was that one. And then when Don Zimmer, who was 100 years old, little fat, bald-headed Don Zimmer, manager for the Yankees, runs out against the Boston Red Sox, and Pedro Martinez hip tosses him onto the ground. And you got this 68-year-old, however old he was. I'm like, it looks so bad. I mean, how are you going to hip toss a 68-year-old? But what's he going to do? It's either that or get the crap knocked out of him by a 68-year-old. Didn't have much of a choice.
Elder abuse, yeah.
Just funny, man. Funny stuff. Funny stuff. Let's see. Trace Jackson Davis. Yesterday, we had the opportunity to speak with him for the first time since his decision to withdraw from the 2022 NBA draft and return to Indiana next season. Let's see. Which clip you have first, John?
Oh, we can go with you first.
Sure. Why not?
It was a big relief. You got people asking every day what your decision is going to be. Before I got COVID, I really wasn't even set on what I was going to do. I was going to just see what happened at the NBA Combine, try to show out there and take it from there. But after getting COVID and not even having symptoms, but just I kept testing positive. So I just felt like it was a sign that I should return. But it was a huge relief. And then the expectations that I have for our team, I would say the biggest thing for me is trying to win a championship. Obviously take it first with the Big Ten and then see what happens in the NCAA tournament. So
there you go. Ask him how much of a relief was it to just get this stuff out of the way? Because it has to be a pain, you got all these people wanting and you're waiting just like that. And so now, and then
you could still hear in his voice too, throughout the interview that he was still a little sick, right? With the COVID stuff.
I was thinking he did not sound, I was thinking it's kind of the same thing. That he did not sound 100% up to par. But he seems locked in on their goals, which again, easy to say that, but are they willing to do the work that it takes to reach those goals? Do they know how hard it is for those teams that who have achieved that, the work that it takes to be the best? So we'll find out that as well. But Kevin, what did you ask him?
I asked him about just the potential of the entire front court with Jordan Geronimo, Race Thompson coming back in, the addition of Malik Renaud, and how he intends to help kind of lead and guide him.
Absolutely. Especially with Malik. He's a great player. I've watched a little bit of his film. The big thing with him, too, he's a winner. So that's great. Mott Bird, that's a powerhouse team. Him and Jalen coming in, they're going to make huge contributions. I have no doubt about that. They're very mature for their grades. And I'm going to take him under my wing this summer and get to work, play against him, play with him, see how he is. And we're just going to take it from there. But I expect them to be ready to play.
There you go. So there's another answer from Trace on next year's team.
Yeah, and you look at the front court that Indiana has. I mean, Hunter Dickinson, and if Diabate comes back for Michigan, they'll be somewhat formidable. But just the whole depth of this front court, with George Geronimo returning, with the potential of Malik Renault, and Trace and Race, you've got a pretty nice 4-man front court rotation that, depth, injuries, foul trouble, you name it. They're going to have bodies there that they can throw in throughout the course of the game. And, Trace and Race will probably be the linchpins again. But I think George Geronimo showed last year, particularly at the end of last year, his value and his worth. And, certainly what he can bring as well. And Malik Renault is a 5-star talent. So you've got a lot of depth in the front court. As we said, again, it's going to come down to the shooting, right?
Absolutely, but absolutely a lot more talent to throw out onto the floor with less fear of fall off. We saw that a lot with mass rotations last year. You'd see kind of a massive fall off. Does that follow this season? I don't know if it continues with the mass type substitutions, although the talent is better. Maybe they do. I don't know. We'll wait and find out. But it's going to be a lot deeper rotation potentially. I mean, it's going to be hard to keep this beyond. This has got to bump up against a 10-man rotation almost.
Yeah, no, and I think you could literally take Trace and Race out for a stretch if you want to rest them, and have Malik and Jordan Geronimo in there, and maybe not have that much of a drop-off. Now, Malik is a freshman. He's going to have to adapt, particularly in the Big Ten. We see that with freshmen, and sometimes the light doesn't come. We saw that last year with Diabate and Caleb Houston at Michigan, right? 2 Montverde guys. The light didn't really come on until February and March, but when it does come on, and when you do see that growth and development, then it could be really scary. And then, by the time February and March rolls around, if you're in position and you have those guys playing at you have a guy like Malik Renault that's comfortable by then, you could really have something special in terms of the depth and the talent in the front court.
Yeah, and then they're not going to have. They're going to have to grow up quick is a good and bad thing, because the schedule this year is going to be pretty daunting, and it could be one of the toughest schedules in the country. If you stop and think now, if this game with Arizona gets completed, which would be a week before the game with Kansas, you've got the ACC Big Ten Challenge, which who knows? They sure like to play Indiana and Duke or North Carolina together. So what if you get a North Carolina team, and then you've got the Gavitt games?
The one thing I'll say this year, though, is I would think that Indiana would be due for a home game because they played 2 straight on the road in that Big Ten ACC. So you would think that game is going to be in Assembly Hall this year, right?
Right, but I'm just talking about the level of off-season of non-conference scheduling, which had been so horrible, is going to do a 180 real fast. When you add Arizona, Kansas, potentially a North Carolina type, whomever out of the Big East, that's a pretty strenuous non-con schedule.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what ACC team they pair with Indiana this year. If it'll be Duke, North Carolina, or maybe if they give them a break and give them a team like NC State, or give them a team like, they've had FSU in the past. I don't think they would do FSU again, right? Because they
want ratings, baby. They want ratings.
Also
Miami. What about Miami? Nigel Pack. Bringing them up off of an Elite 8 run, putting them in Assembly Hall, probably be a kind of a draw.
Yeah, Jim Larinaga, very good coach, and that would be an interesting game for sure. That would be something that would be a little different as well. And
regardless, their schedule is going to be a hell of a lot more difficult as far as non-com, but it's also going to be a hell of a lot more respectable. As we're in years past, it has been pretty low rated.
Yeah, and if you remember last year, I think with Mike Woodson also last year, I think new coach, new system, you're kind of reining them in a little bit. But this year, I think you're going to see more of that second year comfort combined with the talent level. You can take on those challenges early in the season and not feel like the confidence of your team is going to be destroyed.
Absolutely. Looking forward to that. Chronic Hoosier is going to join us next, as he does each and every week. Looking forward to chatting with him. I'm sure he has got some great bits of nuggets to add to this a happy week for Hoosier fans, as they've got to be. This is, I mean, there's not a lot happier they could be. There was not much else that was going to happen with this roster than it did. Although it's not perfect, it is as strong as it has been in years.
Yeah, no question. I think this is going to be it has a chance to be a fairly interesting season, intriguing season, and a season that where maybe Indiana can, get to that next level where, they're going to be possibly preseason top 25 team and, nationally relevant throughout the course of the year.
We got to take a break. Coming next, Chronic Hoosier is going to join us, brought to you by our good friends at Rebacks Realty. If you're in the market for a home in the Indianapolis area today, you need Cheryl Sizemore and her 2 decades of experience. Reach out to her, Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com. We're back with Chronic Hoosier after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Whether you're visiting Bloomington.
Good morning, Chronic.
Good morning, gentlemen.
How are you, sir?
Oh, I am trying to kick this fever still.
You and Trace Jackson, man.
I'll tell you what, man, this has been a much rougher go than the first bout I had with it.
You've had a rough year, my brother.
Twice in like 4 months, man. This is not what I signed up for when we got vaxxed and boosted and everything else.
And the knee, we got all kinds of stuff going on.
I'll tell you what, man, if it don't kill you, it just makes you stronger, right?
You got it.
What's new with you, it's going around to get a little bit COVID.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
My mom and my stepdad I'm a little nervous about them, but they seem to be doing okay. But
that's my scary thing is we just had my parents up on Wednesday for my son had an end-of-year band concert, and it was their anniversary. So we went to the show and took them out to dinner, and then 24 hours later, I am uncontrollably shaking and sweating.
Jeez. Yeah. I mean, I still wear my mask to the gym and to the supermarket. I'm like the only one right now that wears it. I don't see anyone else.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But I don't mess around when I'm in those 2 public spaces for some reason. Now, the bars and restaurants are different. I don't do it there, but.
Well, I'm curious to see what the immunity looks like this time around, because that was awfully short-lived. And that's the thing is we got really bad about masks after being vaxxed, boosted, infected. We're still, again, within, 4 months. And it's like, yeah, surely we're cool. No, not at all.
I know. It's nuts. Yeah. I guess if you're going to get it, you're going to, like, I got it in December, and I remember the cough stuck with me for like a month.
Mm-hmm.
That was like the main thing. I remember even New Year's Day, I was like coming back and having a cough and fit, and I'm like, is this cough ever going to go away? And it finally did. It was like the first or second week of January. And I contracted it. I think I contracted it like the first week of December.
See, I had the first go around was just basically a sinus infection is what it felt like dealing with, but the sinus infection never left. Like I've been stuffy since I first got it in January. So I'm real curious what residuals are in
Andy
this
Moore
go
Honda,
around.
Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer. Get more to your door with AndyMooreHonda.com.
Come see us at the all-new Andy Moore Honda, now in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back. It is Tuesday here at Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Chronic Hoosier joining us. Kevin Brockway with me from CNHI, as always. How's it going, Chronic?
It's going, man. Glad to be back. Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure, man. It's at least the sun is shining. It's I thought we were at spring, and then all of a sudden we got the rain and the cold weather again. But we'll eventually get there.
Nah, this is the idyllic time in Indiana, and honestly, right now, until the lake gets warm enough that you can jump inside of it, if there's race cars on the track, keep those temps cool and the speed high, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, that I can't imagine jumping that lake right now. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, give it a month; it's going to be perfect.
The water's up. I noticed substantially. Has been much higher, up to its normal levels for the first time in probably 3 years.
Yeah, as is want to happen this time of year. It gets a little high right now, which makes for some great fishing, great paddling around the lake. But what it also does is it raises that pool level up into some shallows, lets the lake get real warm here. So we're going to see hopefully a rapid warming and a quick return to boat season.
What kind of fish can you catch in there in Lake Monroe?
Man, there's all sorts of fish. We mainly go out for bass. My son loves to catch crappies, some monster cats down there, a little bit of everything for everybody.
Bass fishing, baby, you get it all. Let's see, where was you, Joaquin? And I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Asking thoughts on playing Arizona and Kansas in a span of a week, which is something I have thought of. I mean, we're just talking about the schedule, Chronic, of Indiana's being really cranked up after having, playing the Sisters of the Poor a lot, mostly during Archie's tenure. Now, not only are you adding Arizona and Kansas in a span of a week, we were just talking about the potential of who knows where they're going to get in from the ACC. It could be Duke, it could be North Carolina, Miami. And then you have the Gavitt games. So their non-con schedule is taking an absolute rocket ride up this season.
Yeah, this is basically what we said last year when the non-conference came out. I mean, I think everybody was basically willing to give Woody a pass for going a little bit lighter on the non-conference, knowing that it was everybody's first go around together and kind of wanting to get a feel for what he was working with and where his team stood. But as we saw on Selection Sunday, that non-conference strength of schedule came back to bite him a little bit. Indiana was 319th according to Pomeroy in their non-conference schedule last year, and that largely helped contribute, at least put them in Dayton. Now, granted, losses at Syracuse didn't help, nor did the one at Wisconsin or Penn State for that matter. We can go on and on down the list. But Zach and I did a pod last week that I didn't know we were going to be doing last we talked, but we dropped one talking about the non-conference schedule. And this is a blue blood schedule for a team that aspires to be considered among the blue bloods again. It's never wavered in their insistence that they belong there. And I think you see a team that's confident in who they are right now, a staff that's comfortable and willing to push themselves and test themselves and just see how good they can be. And, I've long been a strong proponent of aggressive scheduling. As an IU soccer fan, I've spent my entire lifetime watching IU soccer play the best in the nation, year in, year out, anytime, anywhere, home, away, it didn't matter, because the mindset that iron's going to sharpen iron, and if you're good enough, tournament's going to work itself out at the end of the season if the results are there to support it. But at the end of the day, you want to test your guys, you want to challenge them, you want to grow them and make them better. And you can't grow without getting put in uncomfortable positions. So I can't think of a better way to put this team in a more uncomfortable position than take them to the fog, than to go play Arizona out in the desert. And then I would not be surprised, as Zach mentioned in the podcast, if we see, perhaps North Carolina and maybe Villanova get thrown into the mix there. At the very least, Indiana has perpetually punched up when it comes to these national made for TV events like the Gavitt games, like the ACC Big Ten Challenge. Generally it's competitive balance, but because of the eyeballs Indiana draws, they always tend to draw a higher opponent than perhaps what they're competitively slated at. Well, this year Indiana should expect to be, considered among the top contenders in the Big Ten. So I'd fully expect to see the top competition from both the ACC and the Big East.
Kevin, that's a great point about Indiana potentially adding Villanova to that lineup. I didn't even, think of that with the Big East. I'm like, oh my God, can you imagine with the ACC? You could take your pick of Duke or North Carolina and Miami if you want to, but Duke or North Carolina. But can you imagine if they ended up playing in that month, Kansas, Arizona, Duke, and Villanova?
Villanova, yeah, first-year coach too, with Jay Wright retiring. Another team with a first-year coach that I think would be interesting too, and it would get Woody in the area I know where he's talked about wanting to go. Is what about Seton Hall and Shaheen Holloway? I think that would be another interesting if they ended up sending them to New Jersey in that area, that New York, New Jersey area. That would be another good matchup. I was thinking as far as like a Big East team is concerned, but. Yeah, Seton Hall or Villanova, one of those two programs that'd be pretty neat. A traditional Big East program.
Well, either way, Chronic, Indiana is going to be playing a non-con schedule next year that looks a lot like it used to and a lot like it should. Trace Jackson Davis made a great comment yesterday that goes along with something I say all the time. He said that when Indiana is good, college basketball is good. And I always say that doesn't matter what sport you're talking about. People want those. They want those great rivalries. They want they want to see Indiana, Kentucky, and Kansas, and Duke, and North Carolina, and all that. They want that. And Indiana has just kind of been the odd one out of there for a while. But this could be the time for them to make that reemerge. The sleeping giant may have awoken.
Yeah, it's funny you say Kentucky. This is also something in the non-conference schedule that fills a void Indiana has been searching for a decade now with the loss of the Kentucky game. They have needed that nationally relevant opponent in the non-conference schedule. The timing, that second week-ish in December gives you one last great test before the Christmas break and New Year's, and then the full-on resumption of the Big Ten schedule again. I don't know that we're going to see Kansas perpetually on the schedule as a permanent placeholder there, but I think this is a great jumping off point. And I think it's, one thing I mentioned in the pod last week that I've continued to pound this drum. I think it's great to see Indiana expanding its opponents westward. There's been so much focus on the ACC, on the Big East, or at least the northeastern part of the country, as far as how Indiana likes to schedule, where it likes to create those exposures. Quite frankly, basketball is getting a whole lot better in the West than it perhaps is in the East right now. I think the Big 12 is absolutely a big pickup. And if you're going to do it, you might as well do the best in Kansas. And then, I think even expanding it further with Arizona puts Indiana in a market that we don't normally compete a lot in, that we don't normally get a lot of exposure in, be it versus Arizona or, playing in Vegas is going to be awesome. I'm unfortunately committed that weekend. There's no way I'm going to be able to pull the Fog and Vegas in back to back. But I just think it's an awesome opportunity for Indiana fans to get a chance to go out and play in the desert a little bit, to go live it up. And more importantly than anything, for the team to get some great national exposure against an opponent that we don't get to tussle with a whole lot. But at the end of the day, I think this is a sign of a program that's in a really, really good spot right now when it's willing to do things, such as what we see so far reflect in the schedule. When you've got a guy like Trace Jackson Davis choosing to come back, it's just the ultimate vote of confidence in Mike Woodson, what he's doing, what he's building. And more importantly than anything, music to my ears, the accountability and Trace Jackson Davis's in his messaging yesterday. This is a team that's willing to own up who they are, what they want to be, and what it's going to take to get there. So I can't say I've been this excited probably since the 12-13 season.
Yeah, and the one thing I will say is fans are not everybody, but I think that Jaquin, not to pick on you, Indiana is not going to. Well, that's the wrong one. Indiana is not going to be a preseason top 10 team. You got to get that out of your mind. They might be they're a definitive top 25 team. I don't know that they'll be inside the top 20 at the start of the season because the media is going to be on a wait and see. They attitude is for Indiana, but Indiana will have the opportunity to play themselves right up there from that. But Indiana is not starting off inside the top 10, and at least not in my opinion.
I wouldn't be surprised to see him top 15. I think with the with a conference player of the year candidate, potential national player of the year candidate, certainly going to be a Naismith candidate to start the season. I think with the way Xavier Johnson finished, I think with the additions coming in this year, I think Indiana is probably deserving of it. But at the end of the day, and this is what makes sports fandom great, is we get to spend months debating it, and none of it matters a single iota. I mean, it doesn't. It literally.
It's the truth. It's the absolute truth.
Nothing. And I will gladly speak out of both sides of my mouth on this issue and crow about whether or not we are properly rated. And I'll tell you in the same breath, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter until they roll the ball out and they actually play somebody. I think the big thing going forward for this team is the belief component of it. And that's one thing that rankings do is they reaffirm that belief that other people see what you see in yourselves, in your squad, and that you're deserving of a look at least. And I think Indiana deserves a look. And I think the expectations are going to be justifiably high. And, like I said, what we heard from Trace, I think you've got a team that for the first time in a long time looks poised to display some strong leadership. One of the biggest things that you hear coaches talk about, no matter what sport, you want to be successful in college, you got to get old and you got to stay old. And for all the additions, for all the retentions in this offseason, I don't think it's lost that Mike Woodson has not only been able to stay old, but will likely continue to at least in the foreseeable future with some of the retentions he had. Looking at the Tamar Bates, looking at the Jordan Geronimos, looking at those guys that are going to be expected to step into leadership roles when Race and Trace and X leave. I think that's absolutely critical for program continuity, for maintaining success and culture and identity, that you have guys that stick with the program, matriculate from the ground up, and can transfer those lessons, those teaching, that culture onto the next class that comes in. So every year is going to have a huge premium placed on the new guys getting brought up to speed quickly with it. But I think when you've got a core group of leaders like this team's going to have, it's going to put them in a great position to get the guys up to speed and on board with the program.
Well, you've got experience, you've got depth. I think the big question is, do you have shooting? I think that's still the huge question mark. And I still think you have to look a little bit at recent history. I would have them 20 to 25. I would have them somewhere in that range, and maybe show a little bit more during the non-conference schedule to see if they can climb to the top 15. But I do know I'll probably have a vote again this year. And if I did have that vote, I would probably put them in that neighborhood. If I did, depending on the rest of the country too, you have to factor that in too. But I do think that, they're definitely going to be a contender for the Big Ten title for sure this year.
I could have been a contender. I could have been somebody. That's going to get through most people there. Let's see. What else? What's coming up next for you, man?
Hopefully getting it clear to return to work, man. I have not been in the shop since Friday morning. So hopefully today's the day that we get over the hump here. For those that aren't aware, I've been a little ill with the COVID part 2, fever and chill boogaloo. So I'm ready to get back to that. Hopefully getting cleared.
No truth. There's no truth to the rumor that Chronic gave COVID to Trace Jackson Davis.
No,
right?
completely separate. Completely separate. He had that first. He may have been patient 0 for me. I don't know. It could have been the monkeypox came back down from Chicago.
Oh man, the monkeypox.
More than anything, man, I want to get well, and I got to get my kids and my dad up to the track here this weekend. That's my big goal right now, is get healthy and get in a good spot so that we can go see the Indianapolis 500 this year. It's my favorite family tradition every year, and I couldn't be more excited to get back up to the racing capital of the world here this Sunday.
Dude, those dudes are going so fast.
Unbelievable.
Now they're at 243.
Yep. And this is kind of bittersweet. Scotty Brayton's pole record just fell here this weekend, which was awesome to see. Scotty was one of my wife's neighbors up at Coldwater Lake in Michigan growing up, and was a good family friend of theirs. Just an awesome neighbor, quintessential wheel man, and died tragically doing what he loves. But it makes me think, growing up, we used to watch these cars, and every year, I remember when 200 was the record, and then 210, 220, 225, and it just seemed inevitable that we're going to see these cars going 250, 275 at some point in my lifetime. And then obviously we raced up against the physics and just the limits of what is humanly possible to do safe, and that's really where it's where it ran up to, and that's really what's held it back. So to see these guys pushing those speed limits up even higher, but more importantly, to do it safely. I think so far we've only had one crash at the track this week, which is nothing short of miraculous when you consider just the type of machinery being operated up there, and just the razor thin margins of errors those guys operate on. So looking forward to a really fast, hopefully a really safe race for everybody.
Yeah, the improvements are unbelievable, even in NASCAR, where last week it wasn't this all-star race. I think it was the race before. Maybe it was the all-star race. I can't remember. Kyle Busch had been leading the race, gets a left rear flat, slows down substantially. I can't think of the guy's name, but he judges. You've got a blink of an eye to decide left or right, and he judges wrong, and he just slams into him at like 180 miles an hour, and they both get out and walk away. It's crazy.
No, it's that's part of what makes it so exciting. I mean, my dad used to take me up to the quals every year. We'd go sit in turn 3, and as a very young man, I saw Gordon Smiley perish at the track, and left an indelible image from a young guy that was both terrifying and also completely intoxicating, because you see the risk when mistakes get made. And, at the track, people forget, depending on where you're seated, that risk can come up and find you real quick, even as a spectator. That fireball went halfway up the grandstand in turn 3. And it's been one of my greatest addictions ever since I was 3 years old, and I can't wait to get back and share it with my dad and my kids once again here this year.
Chris says that Kevin needs to get down to Georgetown Road on Saturday night about 10 o'clock to get the real experience, baby.
It's going to be nuts. Yeah. Is this going to be the year for Scott Dixon, though? I think that's the big question, right? There always seems to be something that goes wrong for him or whatever during the Indy fight. Is this the year he can finally do it, right?
Scotty and Ed both. Those guys are perpetually just lightning fast. And, that's the thing about a 500-mile race, is there's a lot of bumps along the way you got to navigate. So sometimes it's not always the fastest car on the field that wins, but the wheelman that's best able to navigate those hazards out there.
Chronic Hoosier joining us as he does each week. Cannot thank you enough, brother.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. I can't wait to see you again here soon.
Absolutely. Make sure you stop by our friends at Andy Moore Honda, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer. We've got lots more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat. Before we finish it out, back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Whether you're visiting.
All right.
All right.
15 minutes left in this
All
last segment.
All right. Yeah. Oh my God. I don't want to think about tomorrow night. It's going to wreck my day.
So when do you want me to check in with you later about tomorrow, or are you just going to let me know?
Yes. I've got to figure out if I can move my flight. God.
Where are you going to fly to?
South of here.
He's taking a sabbatical.
Well, kind of, not really.
I meant that in a sort of joking manner, but
yeah.
South America.
Not that far south. That's a little further south than, although it would be cool.
Yeah.
Go down there and see Omar Navarro.
Why not?
But he's dead. His sister's alive.
Yeah.
Did you finish watching that?
What, Better Call Saul?
No, that's Ozark.
Oh, Ozark. Oh no, I haven't. I've never watched Ozark.
Oh my God!
Everybody tells me
Either,
I've
but
got to
I
get
heard a
into it.
lot of people were disappointed in the finale.
Everybody's always disappointing in the finale. What, I don't know what people want.
Yeah, I don't get that either. I feel like I'm never usually disappointed when I watch.
I'm like, what do you want? It's another episode. They're supposed to, like Seinfeld, 14 freaking years, and people want the perfect. I still think Seinfeld was a great episode ending. They brought almost every major character back in that trial, and I'm like, oh my God. And you know instantly who it is, whether they've been on one episode or three. So, whiners.
Yeah,
Whiners, baby.
People just look for things to complain about sometimes.
That's right. Maybe I'll go get a piece of cheese to add to that wine.
When you're a stranger, faces look ugly. When you're alone, women seem wicked. When you're unwanted.
The soothing sounds of Kevin Brockway.
When you're strange, faces come out of the rain. No. Anyway.
Okay, here we go.
John, the producer with Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We're now a part of the Rivals Network. The Hoosier.com is where you can find complete coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and plenty more. Simply go to thehoosier.com and sign up. It's free. You can also find full episodes of Indiana Sports Beat Radio on the homepage or on the station every week, Monday through Friday. If we're not on a station where you live, we should be. Ask for Indiana Sports Beat Radio. This segment is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back on a Tuesday. Kevin Brockway. Ooh, wow, I got it going on. K-Bro. How's everybody doing? Hope everybody's having a great day and heading out. Everybody listening on 97.7 The Ref in Evansville.
Did you you watched the first you watched the last episode of the first half of the season of Better Call Saul last night?
Oh yeah. How about that ending?
Poor Howard, yeah.
Poor Howard. Howard Hamlin. No spoiler alert now. Come on.
Well, I mean, if you haven't seen it, my rule of thumb is this, and I have a friend of mine. He was.
Well, it just came on last night.
I know, but back in his Florida days, and it's like, all these people that DVR and they try to play God. They do that with sporting events too. Like, don't tell me the ending or whatever. If you don't see it live in real time, then all bets are off. You know what I mean? That's my opinion. If you don't carve out the time to watch a sporting event in real time, don't complain if you find out afterwards. All right.
I record a lot of stuff. Yeah, I record a lot of stuff, and sometimes I have to go to. I'm like, oh God, I got to stay away. And at the last second, I'll see it on my phone and get so damn mad. I'm like, gosh, dang it. But yeah. So let's see. Better Call Saul. Yeah.
6 episodes left. Only 6 episodes left.
Yeah. I know. We were talking about best endings. Tony says Breaking Bad nailed their ending.
Loved it.
Yeah. I mean, and that's hard to do for one of the greatest shows of all time.
Yep.
And they nailed the ending.
Yeah. And what's great is the ending song, Baby Blue. That's amazing. That's like totally I think that scene where he's lying dead and they played that song and it's I guess I got what I deserved. That's kind of,
well, and
so fitting for the whole series, right?
But and how they shoot both of those series is how they shot Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. we saw the ending in the very beginning.
Yeah.
Right? Just now we got to figure out how he winds up working at a Baskin and Robbins or one of those Annie's pretzel place.
Well, he works in Omaha. Yeah, no, I thought that was in Breaking Bad, right? Because he went to the vacuum shop, right? And
but that was
I
can't remember. I'm getting confused if that was the end of Breaking Bad or
that was the end of Breaking Bad, where Saul goes to the vacuum shop and they created
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
It's too hard to keep straight. And I'll be honest with you, it's been very difficult to keep Breaking Bad and Ozark straight because they both are dealing with the cartel. So I was like, gosh, darn it. And they both had a runaway. Both a similar character, yeah. So, but I like them both. Ozark is over and done. You should watch that. It's a very good one. And one of the lead players on that, the girl that plays Ruth, is a 2015 Indiana graduate.
Yeah. Is it also an Indiana graduate is Jonathan Banks.
Mike character. So the irony of two of the most important characters on these two shows, these two great shows that we're talking about, IU grads in them. Mike from Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, of course, Jonathan Banks, an IU grad, and then Julie, I can't remember her last name.
Ozark is Ozark will be next on the list. I just finished binge watching Schitt's Creek, which was funny, you know what I mean, comedy and stuff and everything like that.
Can you John, can we say that on the air? That's a joke.
Oh well, yeah, definitely, because it's the title of the show. Yeah,
I know it's a joke. But...
I know. I just didn't know if you actually wanted me to respond or what you wanted me to say.
Yeah.
But Chris Elliott is so great in that. I mean, I love Chris Elliott. And I loved him when he was on Letterman back in the day. You know, he was just, unbelievable.
Not as good as Larry Bud Melman, baby.
Yeah, Larry Bud. He was really good too. Yeah.
Larry Bud Melman was the greatest.
Yeah. But Chris Elliott, the man in the stairs, I mean, he was really good.
The man in the stairs. I don't remember that part.
He used to pop up under the stairs and everything. And I was growing up in the 80s, I was a big Late Night with David Letterman on NBC. I like that show better than his CBS show, but that's just me. It was more.
Let's see. That's Jaqueen says, as an IU fan, he can't say Purdue is going to be bad. Ivy was the 82nd rated player in the nation a couple of years ago, and Purdue got Fletcher Lawyer and is rated in their 80s. There's no way Purdue's going to be bad. I mean, they've got a roster full of talent. I'm not saying they're going to be great. I think that Purdue is going to be a typical Purdue team, a team that battles in the conference, and that's about it.
They'll be top 4 in the league, I think, again this year, because Brandon Newman is another guy that could step into that role, get some playing time. We don't know how Trey Kaufman-Renn is going to be. I think that's a big question mark, right?
Absolutely. And not seeing him last year, and people talk about Logan Duncombe, wasted a year. Well, how much did you see of Trey Kaufman-Renn? Did he redshirt?
He redshirted, yeah.
So they redshirted him. Why not redshirt
Logan
Duncombe?
That's a good question. And I think with Logan too, though, I mean, he's going to get lost in the shuffle, I think, a little bit here with all these other front court players.
That's my, I think, because last year, man, because now it might be too late for him to.
Don't forget drug suspensions. What Trace was talking about. Logan had an issue last year, as I recall.
Well, he had a suspension issue. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, they're not going to release what it was for. It was for 3 days.
Yep.
And you can read from that what you wish. And first of all, let me, but also say, I don't give a crap that a kid, if he is now under 21, I don't think you should be allowed. If you're over 21, I think you should be allowed to smoke pot. You can buy a damn beer. You can buy a shot of whiskey. You can buy a bottle of whiskey. Way worse. So that I don't care about it. It's
apparently
not,
I hear with teens now it's basically the new beer is,
it is.
Teens would rather smoke pot now than drink beer.
And you know what? Stay home and chill probably, but I think it's still
have their munchies and
an older generation still sees this as probably something more serious than I see it. I don't see it as serious at all, as a matter of fact. But that's just my opinion.
I will say this, as a son of someone that was in law enforcement, because my mom was a cop, it was like the fear of God. And in the 80s, it was say no to drugs, right? And everything
marijuana was like everybody's dying because of marijuana. And when nobody's dying, nobody's addicted, nobody's.
But it was portrayed as a gateway drug, right? Like it would lead to other things and so forth.
Which is complete horse crap.
Yeah.
Complete and total horse crap.
Because don't forget, I mean, we had, we were in the era with Len Dias, his heart exploding because he's taking, a bunch of cocaine and so forth and everything. And that was like the fear,
That's serious. But you don't, a guy doesn't start doing coke because he's smoking pot. They have nothing to freaking do with each other. That's like somebody drinking, this guy drinking, well, he started off drinking a Coke. Well, hell, now he's over here drinking scotch. What the hell does drinking a Coke have to do with drinking scotch? It's the same relationship. There is not one. But oh, what? Ross says that Logan did not want to redshirt, which I can see that, but probably would have been to his advantage. I don't know if that's a mental thing or what it is, but we'll see. Purdue is still going to have a very big lineup because they do have their big boy coming back. That's not with Edey, Zach Edey. But see, all he is a big guy. He's gigantic. But what happens when a team runs their ass off the floor?
And not only that, for a guy that's 7'4" in Edey, he doesn't
dominate much.
Not a rim protector at all. Like he's a guy that you can, he does not. And it'll be interesting to see if they try to develop him that way, if he can be better that way. But he doesn't seem to have those natural shot blocking and rim protecting instincts, defensively. Now, offensively, he can finish around the basket if you get him the ball, down low and so forth. And I think that's, like I said, that's going to be, that makes him tough. But you've got First there too, who should grow and get a little better. He was a Mr. Basketball for a reason in Indiana. He's going to be good. And then you have Trey Kaufman-Renz. So you've got some guys there, but I mean, Trevion Williams was a pretty good scorer and a pretty good low post player. That's going to be another loss too that they're going to feel, I think.
Let's see. Kenneth says he never saw Trey Kaufman-Renz as being that good. Well, he's pretty good. But if they are relying on Smith to run point, they will be even worse. Now they're back up for Edey as another oversized center that likely can't run. That's just I'm not here to bash on Purdue. I don't care. But it just brings up at the point again of not just Purdue, but the Big Ten competing on a national level. You cannot compete anymore on the national level with the Purdue system. The two big guys lumbering around. Man, the game's too quick. The guys are getting too athletic. And that's where Mike Woodson's trying to get Indiana to, it seems, for certain. And that seems like that's where the game is going, Kevin.
No, I agree. And I think, from seeing it from the SEC for many years when I covered Florida too, that's an up and down league, a lot more so than the Big Ten. The Big Ten has always been, from what I've seen is, it's half court basketball. Obviously it's walk the ball up the court more often than not. And, it's a body bag league in terms of the contact. And I think you need a balance. You just need to be able to do a little bit of everything. You take a look at the Big 12, and the ACC, they get up and down when they have to. They play half court when they have to. And I think that's what you need with the Big Ten. You need more teams that play up and down. And I think Fran McCaffrey, Iowa, they play a little up and down. I think Woodson wants to get there. I think probably Crean did right back in the day.
Well, you just mentioned two guys that played up and down and not much defense. So
you want the defense to go with it. And I think Woody has the defensive component. So, for sure. So,
well, man, I cannot thank you enough as always, and look forward to doing it again. Don't forget tomorrow night, Huber's, Indiana, the coaches are down there. So we'll have a complete wrap up on that on Thursday, actually. But big thanks to Kevin, K-Bro, from CNIHI. Make sure you give him a follow at Kevin Brockway G1. Mike DeCourcy, thanks a lot, as well as Chronic Hoosier. Most importantly, John, the producer. Most importantly, thanks to you guys. Without you, we've got no reason to be here. But while you're here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and the like button for us. Give me a follow as well on Twitter at Jim Coyle ISB. We're going to wrap it up, and we'll be back to do it all again tomorrow. And hope you guys go out and have yourselves a great, great day. Until then, I'm going to see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.